Oh, I'm going to be the guy that does that. I thought George and I were going to kind of ping pong this. George, you want to do that anyway?
You can. Sure.
If you'd like. George Blaha, Michigan
Yeah,
State play-by-play broadcaster and Michigan Sports Hall of Famer and Detroit Pistons broadcaster, George Blaha. It is always a pleasure to have George with us. I would like to tell you, Bill, first of all, to correct you because you're wrong.
I have them.
You are. The Lions have won 5 straight. This season is the only one that counts. We don't count last season. We don't count preseason. We have won 5 games, the Detroit Lions. That's it. We don't want to go out there and say, oh my God, they're on a 13-game winning streak. No. They've won 5 in 2011. That's it. We're not going any beyond that. You got it? You got it? All right. Anything else?
Sounds like Coach Schwartz, doesn't he?
All right.
We want to get our quarterbacks up here to get by this cake.
Picture, photo op. Okay, all the 4 quarterbacks stand right around here. Semicircle behind that thing. There you go. This thing is more rehearsed than a wedding. Well, George and I will ping-pong the questions. But first things first, since we looked at the game with the famous Spartan Bob clock, I'm going to ask all the quarterbacks here, every one of them, and they'll agree with me, that play never happens if Jeff Smoker just throws it away. Then the clock stops, there's 7 seconds left, 11 seconds left, they might get 2 plays off. But he chose to run and was tackled. But all of you, I think, would agree that that play never happens if Jeff throws the ball, right? Go ahead, Jim.
I can tell you, I thought it was executed perfectly. I mean, that's how you clock the football right there. That's how it was coached. So, executed.
I'm talking about on the running one where he got tackled.
He got tackled and executed the the ball play perfectly. So, I thought it was an excellent decision. Coached up pretty well.
There was plenty of time left. Looked to me.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, they're just being Michigan State guys, George. They want to make. What do you get? What the Michigan guys think? If Jeff throws the ball away on the play that he was tackled, instead of getting tackled, the clock stops 10 seconds, no problem.
Whatever you say, Jim.
Michael?
Good coach stuff.
I think we were operating on Sparty time.
That's what's the beauty of this rivalry, isn't it, George?
Absolutely. Well, there was a call, we were told, to the football office on Monday from the Big Ten that said there was more than a second left. They put the clocks all together, and then all of a sudden, that call went away. I don't know if someone called the Big Ten from Ann Arbor and said, keep your mouth shut, but it's 10 years ago, and hopefully after today, it'll be the end of the conversation.
I don't know about that. Yeah, it'll never be. It's like Desmond being interfered with in the end zone. Oh, excuse me.
And why was the 97 win that was kind of a lopsided game, why was that one of the 5 best games?
Were they both undefeated? Were they both undefeated? They both are undefeated.
All right. So, at this point in time, Michigan's got a new football coach, Brady Hoke. What do I know? I'm from Michigan State, but that's probably the guy they should have hired when they hired the other guy. So, how close are they, fellas, to being back where you guys would like them to be?
I think they're close. I think if you look at, the one thing that we've had over the years in our tradition is that we have a team spirit, a team mentality. And when you look at that, I think this year you can see, and probably even over the last 3 years more this year, so that this team is more closer. That camaraderie is building up to where you can see that on the defensive side of things, they're trying to trust their teammates. One man can't go out there and do it by himself. It takes a team. And when you look at that, the improvement on that side of the football, that's what our team has been missing over the last several years, is not being able to
Denny Brown brings a great perspective to that because he played under Bump Elliott.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the oldest guys in the room.
He coached under Bo Schembechler.
And I was also a senior when Jim came in as a freshman, and as a matter of fact, helped host him for his
He
visit.
did. Danny was
he came in
kind of
from
like
high school, so
he was kind of like my big
yeah, I go
brother
way
on,
back.
on my recruiting trip.
Yeah,
But
I just want to say seriously, I'm surprised that I'm here. As we all know, football didn't start in Ann Arbor until 1969, and anybody prior to 1969 is just kind of who knows. But I have to say, Mr. Zadkoff signed a football for me back in 1955 that I still have, and every time I see him, I tell him about it. Great football player for Michigan, obviously with the Detroit Lions. And so it's nice to see him up, around, mobile, and he realizes it. That's the most important thing. But anyway, you can talk about the last 3 years, all you want to. It's history. I think if you look at this series, it's a game of ups and downs as far as rallies. One team will win 3 or 4 years, one team will win 2 or 3 years. And if you go back all the way that you care to, I looked at 1938 on, and there's been stretches of 8 and 9 wins for one team, there's been stretches of 6 and 7 wins for one team, and right now we have, at Michigan, sustained 3 successive losses against Michigan State. I can honestly tell you, from being on both sides of the ball as a player and as a coach, and I'll say this, in no way has the Ohio State game ever surpassed what it feels to play and get ready for the Spartans at Michigan State. The media made it the Ohio State game. The Bo versus Woody, the mentor versus the teacher, yada, 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 yada. And I worked for the man for 8 years and is the greatest boss I ever had. But what I'll say to this, every team goes through it. Unfortunately, the coach that we had for the last 3 years didn't have a chance, and I'm not going to get up on my soapbox about that, but we've got a good guy in there now. Not that the other guy wasn't a good guy, but he is a guy that emulates the things that have been Michigan for years and years and years. He gets it. He gets Michigan State. He gets Ohio State. He gets the Big Ten. He understands what it means to play in this conference. So I'm looking forward to the game on Saturday. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do something up there and reverse this thing. But again, it's one of those series where you go in stretches, you go in groups, and right now we are in the decade since 2000. It's still 7-4 in favor of Michigan. It just, unfortunately, we've lost the last 3. So I don't know if I answered the question or not, but I'll pass it on down to Jim.
Hey, Jim Miller, you played for a guy who emphasized...
You want your signed football back?
You're the guy you played for a defensive-oriented coach, George Perlis. Talking about defense, you got to stop people to give your team a chance to win. And Mark D'Antonio certainly is a defensive-oriented coach, and he's also the kind of guy who we can see now. I mean, everybody can see this. God rest his soul, Ray Charles can see this. Mark D'Antonio is in the right place for him and for MSU, isn't he?
Absolutely, and I'll, just to really piggyback off what Coach Brown said next to me is that Mark D'Antonio understands the Big Ten, and it was key for Michigan to get a guy back, I think, in Brady Hoke that understands the Big Ten, and even bringing back Greg Madison as the defensive coordinator for the University of Michigan Wolverines. I played against Greg in the pros, very good defensive coordinator, but they understand, what it means and that the games have meaning and what it is like to play in the Big Ten. So I commend Michigan because we went through our years with John L. Smith. He just wasn't the right guy, wasn't the right fit, and I think you're just getting over that with Rich Rodriguez, but are headed in the right direction. But defenses are a lot more complicated today. For Mark D'Antonio, when you look at a lot of blitz zones, you look at these schemes, the defenses that I see today are a lot more than even what I faced in college in the early 90s. Because back then, shoot, if you can do 1 or 2 things, you're feeling pretty good, whether it's cover 2 or cover 3. Now you got all these complicated blitz zones that these teams are executing, and for Michigan State, it's been a very effective package for them. And if you don't believe me, go look at that game against Ohio State, where they probably should have pitched a shutout against the Buckeyes. But a lot of blitzes that were brought. And I think Mark D'Antonio, that's really what sets the tone for his team, because he is a defensive-minded guy, and and that's his area of expertise, and he takes a lot of pride in it, and bringing those devastating defenses, and is starting to get the talent pool to where it needs to be to continue to grow defensively.
We saw on the tape kind of what Michigan and Michigan State and the rivalry brings to the table. It's great memories, great moments for one team or the other. For you guys, I'd like to ask each of you, in a minute or less, I want to move it along a little bit, your favorite Michigan State memory. We'll start with Brian.
Well, I have to narrow it down to one then, since that's got to be the year that I played against Michigan. The other three I did not. One, we did win in '78, the Big Ten title, and we beat Michigan at Michigan, and I was a 168-pound freshman, so I was not participating in any way except on the sideline, but that was a great memory. But my fondest memory is when I got to start against the Wolverines in '81, against Bo and the Wolverines, and they came out in a zone defense, and I say immodestly I kind of picked them apart, but they were strictly playing zone, and I had about near 300 yards passing in the first half and 2 touchdowns, and we were amazingly and ecstatic to be ahead 20-16 at halftime. Dreams of sugar plums were dancing in my head, big upset. Unfortunately, they came out in the second half with Butch Woolfolk and ran for 265 yards against us. We didn't score again. They switched to a man-to-man defense, which, they had, of course, Bo and Lloyd Carr and Bill McCartney on defense, but they tightened up their coverages, and I forced a couple throws, and they got interceptions, so, I learned what it was like going against a legendary Bo Schembechler, what the coaching was all about, but that was my favorite memory. Unfortunately, it ended at halftime, but up until then, it was very good.
Jim Miller?
Then my senior year in '93, because Michigan, of course, was favored, and they came to our house at Spartan Stadium, and I said it even in the postgame. I thought we dominated the game, and we did, from kickoff to the final clock winding down to 0. So it was just a great game because we practiced hard all week, the emotion, the hype, and then you go out and you execute a plan.
A play, Jim. You remember a play?
A play?
There's a play in there.
Well, absolutely. Well, I hit Mill Coleman on a little skinny post route in that game, and I also hit Dwayne Goldburn for 40 yards, just a 5-yard throw, but he scampered 40 yards down the sideline to keep the clock moving to really wind down the game. So a lot of fun.
That's a beauty, because we could have played 100 years ago, and yet you'll remember a play, which end zone it went to, where you were. Players that played in this game remember that. Denny, I know you remember '68.